Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So today I have a really special video. For a while, I've really been following closely and really been an advocate for Dritz the Theorist. He's literally my favorite theorist out there, no offense to anyone else, but me and him think on a very similar wavelength. I look at him as really a better version of myself. And so it's frustrating to me when I see his channel not growing like when my channel is growing, when I feel like his content is worth it. So I reached out to Dritz to work on a project together in a way so that I could really showcase how good of a theorist he is. And so that's what this video is going to be. This is not going to be my video. This is 100% going to be Dritz talking to you guys, sharing his theory, but it is so pro, it is so good. I just think that everyone should have, at the very least, had the opportunity to listen to Dritz's opinions. And if you like what you hear, I highly recommend you actually subscribe to his channel, which will be in the description, it'll be in the comment section, and it'll be at the end of the video as well. But without further ado, if you haven't heard him before, you're about to hear him, the legendary theorist, Dritz.
Yo, what's good, guys? I'm Dritz the Theorist, and I would like to thank Joyboy Senpai for allowing me the opportunity to post a theory on his channel. I know that things like this aren't exactly supported on other channels. You are here for Joyboy and not me, but I'm going to try and fill his shoes momentarily. Slobber knocking aside, the recent reveal that the marriage partner that Lola ran away from, being the Prince of Elbaf, Loki, contains gigantic levels of importance to the One Piece storyline and gives us, the readers, a starting point for discussing the plot details that could be centered around Elbaf. I did a theory on my channel where I drew parallels between Usopp and an 18th century novel called Gulliver's Travels. In this story, there is a land of giants with many other islands that seem to have inspired Oda in some sense. I proposed in this video that in some way, shape, or form, Usopp will become involved with the royalty of Elbaf like the main character of that novel did. But there were some problems that I admitted to, that I did not really know what the details of the plot would be since it's not well established. And it should be kind of accepted at this point that Oda is not a plagiarist. He may become inspired from something, but he will always add his natural twist to whatever it is that inspires him. This makes accurately predicting anything somewhat tricky, but with the specifics of the Norse influence on Elbaf being revealed, I think it's more possible to predict some of the events that may be important to Elbaf. There are probably some of you out there who have already seen similar videos focusing on the Norse aspects of Elbaf, but I hope this video will be a bit more in-depth for you and contain things that you might not have considered. So sit back and enjoy. I feel the need to defend the basis of Usopp and by extension the Straw Hat Pirates becoming involved with the government and or royalty of Elbaf, because there are people out there who think that the Straw Hats have already been a part of one too many arcs involving royalty already, and that adding another is something Oda just wouldn't do. To combat this train of thought, I suggest looking at the data of One Piece sagas, whether it be in the metaphorical or literal sense of royalty. In the 9 total sagas that consist of One Piece, 6 of them involve royalty in some way. Alabasta, Sky Island, the Summit War, which consists of Sabaody, Fishman Island, Dressrosa, and what we are in right now, the Yonko Saga, all contain and consist of something involving royalty in some way. This number only increases when you boil it down to specific arcs, and more so if we look at future arcs in the story. Zou, Whole Cake Island, Reverie, and Wano contain royal features, so to argue that it's too much to say that Elbaf will as well, to me doesn't really make sense. Take into consideration that as we delve deeper and deeper into the New World, that contacts and connections made within the story become more endgame, so meeting influential people becomes a given for the Straw Hat crew. Having established that, let's move forward into discussing the importance of Loki. I feel that a general consensus of the One Piece fandom will admit that the Elbaf arc has been set up to be a Usopp heavy arc. In fact, much of the New World seems to contain tasks for the Straw Hat members to overcome. Sanji must overcome his family, among other things, in Whole Cake Island. Wano is projected to be a Zoro-centric arc for obvious reasons, because anything Zoro-related will pose a challenge that Zoro will have to overcome. This pattern then could suggest that Elbaf will contain a challenge that must be overcome by Usopp. And in the 2 weeks or so since the reveal of Loki, a fair amount of people have garnered that Loki will be Usopp's obstacle for Elbaf, and for good reason. In Norse mythology, there is no consensus on whether Loki is a god, giant, or both, yet Loki's personality has often been acquainted with that of a trickster and a liar who does what pleases him. In terms of compatibility and personality, Loki seems to be the most perfect fit out of all opponents for Usopp since the beginning of the series, in my eyes. And this is important for Usopp's symbolism and his development towards his dream. Usopp is known for his cowardice and lying, but if there was any obstacle for Oda to put in Usopp's way in his path to becoming a brave warrior of the sea, then I couldn't think of anyone better than Loki, who is essentially a better version of what Usopp is projected to be. Usopp would have to overcome himself to reach his dreams. Rather fitting. Let's talk a bit about Loki and giants. Giants are an incredibly powerful race in One Piece, as evidenced by Chiffon's dialogue in chapter 858. But I find the concept of some giants possessing devil fruits to be so inviting, since it opens the door of possibilities, right? And looking into Loki's mythology, I believe that he will and does have a devil fruit, and it's one that we have seen an iteration of in the past. Loki is famous for being a shapeshifter. He has taken the appearance and form of a salmon, a fly, an elder woman, a frost giant, and a mare. Don't look up the mare details, it's kind of disgusting. I think Oda will hold true to this aspect of Loki in his lore with a devil fruit. I believe that it is likely that Loki is in the possession of the stronger version of Bon Clay's Mane Mane no Mi, the imitation devil fruit. Oda has revealed in SBSs and in arcs that there are devil fruits that are very similar to each other, but have strict advantages over other forms of it. This can be seen in the abilities of Doflamingo's executives when compared to that of the Baroque Works members. Bon Clay possessed a great ability to change his form to imitate people he touched before, but it does have flaws. He cannot or has not shown to take the form of animals or inanimate objects, and struggles at mimicking people's voices, making his imitations somewhat subpar. So a better version of this devil fruit would be the shape-shifting fruit possessed by Loki, which can do all the things that Bon Clay cannot. With this devil fruit, Oda would stay true to the lore, and it would obviously bring in ways for Oda to implement comedy, because that's how Oda do. I am proposing a Usopp vs Loki battle being a major key to the Elbaf arc, each person representing a faction. This is common knowledge, but the typical formula for a One Piece arc includes the Straw Hats stumbling upon a group of people in need of help, and in doing so, they side with a faction of people. I think this will happen in Elbaf as well, and particularly so since we know what the giants mean to Usopp as a character. There are also other reasons why a Loki vs Usopp battle seems likely to me. Usopp in the past has been paralleled with biblical symbolism, and this appears in Dressrosa. Usopp obtained the name God Usopp and was called a messiah by many of his clueless followers. But I feel that it is important to note that just because Elbaf is inspired by Norse mythology doesn't mean that Oda is limited to only using Norse mythology, because if we look at religion in a whole, there are many commonalities that are connected between them, whether you admit it or not. A Loki versus Usopp encounter would be very similar to the Bible story of David versus Goliath. Goliath is a Bible character who was a giant Philistine warrior who was defeated by the future king of the Israelites, David, in a one-on-one battle. This battle holds a very popular meaning for representing an underdog situation, where a smaller, weaker person faces a much bigger and stronger one. In the Christian perspective of this battle, Goliath, who I suggest is the parallel to Loki, represents paganism, while David, Usopp, is the champion of the god of Israel, or, in the One Piece story, could be the champion of the god of Elbaf, which has been mentioned before. This was seen as prefiguring Jesus' victory over sin on the cross, which could have symbolism to something we've seen before in the story. David's choice of weapon was a sling, much like how Usopp carries the odd weapon of a slingshot. And in this story, Goliath was felled with a single shot from David, which you could say might happen in Usopp's victory over Loki, but you never know how Oda is going to take the story and change it. In the past, I have seen many One Piece fans complain that Usopp has not gotten stronger since the time skip, like the Monster Trio, and I feel that in this fight, should it come to pass, will bring up those same complaints. But guys, there is something that we had to come to terms with. Oda has stated also in an SBS that regardless of the point in story or time that Usopp is in, he will forever be the weakest of the Straw Hats. So there won't be a time in which Usopp is on the same level like Zoro or Sanji as it comes to brute strength. The important thing to take away is that accomplishing Usopp's dream of becoming a brave warrior of the sea does not require you to be physically strong. Bravery is something recognized by other people, kind of like how Roger was when it comes to being the Pirate King. It is the act of doing something that makes one brave, which, given the nature of the Usopp versus Giant matchup, there is probably no way for Usopp to realistically beat a giant outside of the shenanigans that he has used in defeating prior enemies. Plus, it would be symbolic for the trickster Loki to be out-tricked by Usopp in battle. Usopp will defeat Loki in a one-on-one encounter, and much like mythology, I think Loki will be imprisoned by the giants for his misdeeds. So, what have I established so far? Well, there's going to be a Loki versus Usopp battle. Loki has the shape-shifting devil fruit, and Usopp defeating Loki will represent the will of the giants in a similar manner to David versus Goliath. All of which is very nice, but there are two major features that I still need to address. What does this accomplish for the Straw Hats? And is Loki the main antagonist of Elbaf? I am of the opinion that Loki will not be the main antagonist of the Elbaf arc. I know there are some ideas out there that believe the opposite, but I think there is evidence in the story of One Piece and in mythology to the contrary. One Piece is a shonen manga, and in shonen manga, the main protagonist is almost always responsible for taking out the leading antagonist of every arc. In the end, One Piece is a story driven by Luffy's character, and in every arc, Luffy has either defeated or confronted, verbally or physically, the leading antagonist of said arc. Bar Usopp being the only Straw Hat on Elbaf, it would not make any sense to me for Usopp to be responsible for defeating Loki if he was the main villain. This would leave a huge absence of a role to play for Luffy. And you can see this in other situations in other character-driven arcs. Luffy has defeated the main villain in each major arc when that arc was revolved around someone else's development. Arlong for Nami, Lucci for Robin, Doflamingo for Law, I could go on. The Norse mythology does not support the mentality of Loki being a solid, standalone antagonist. Never at any point in Norse mythology is Loki deemed as completely evil. He chooses sides as he sees fit, based on how he's feeling. He has helped the gods at various points, and also has targeted them. The gods being the giants of Elbaf in this case, if you wanted to parallel them. Yet within Norse mythology, there is a group that is generally recognized as the enemy of the gods, and play a vital role in the era-changing event of Ragnarok, in which these enemies, combined with a Loki freed from imprisonment, battle against the gods. The main antagonist of Elbaf could be Oda's interpretation of these enemies of God, which are known as the Jotun, a banished race of giants. I think that the idea is much more likely for an important arc like Elbaf and future arcs in general if there is more than one party involved. Which leads me to the ending section of this theory. Knowing that the Straw Hats are going to eventually save the day and end conflicts in Elbaf, what does this do to advance the plot? There are two ideas that I can think of. The former being almost guaranteed, and the latter being a fairly reasonable guess. There is a running theme, which most of you guys know in One Piece, where all of Usopp's lies come true. And in seeing how the Elbaf army is the strongest in the world, and Usopp has clamored numerous times of his 8,000 followers, there is a strong argument to be made that Usopp gains the friendship, and by extension the help of, the Elbaf army. But what would be important in terms of the crew as a whole? Currently, the Straw Hats are in possession of 2 out of 4 poneglyphs. Assuming that all goes well in Wano as well, then the crew would then somehow have to find the lost poneglyph before they can begin the journey of going to Raftel. There could always be a new place introduced to the crew that could contain the last poneglyph. But given what we know, and as far as arcs that are available in One Piece, Elbaf is definitely the best place for the last poneglyph to be located. The last poneglyph, guarded by the strongest country in the world, seems like a fairly safe place to me. And this could even have impact with the dynamics of the arc as well, with what the antagonists want, and could connect nicely in transitioning to whatever arc would be after Elbaf. Potentially a Shanks and Blackbeard involvement, since it is the Yonko saga. Blackbeard does have a mysterious giant outlaw in his crew, in one San Juan Wolf, who might have ties to Loki, as one of Loki's sons, because in mythology, Fenrir, a wolf, is the son of Loki. Which I'm probably reaching a bit much there, but we'll see how things pan out, right? I hope you dudes and dudettes have a nice day wherever you are, and maybe I'll see you in the future as well with Joy Boy. But until next time, see ya!
And so guys, if you've made it to this part of the video, congratulations. I often have various issues with theories that I hear in one way or another. And even if this idea may be speculative in some way, the reasoning behind it is 100%. And I cannot say that very often. But I really hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And again, if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't enjoy this, please check out and subscribe to Dritz. He put a lot of effort into this video, and I honestly would feel bad for him to upload a video on my channel and for him not to get anything from it. So I'm hoping to, in a way, make his channel big, because I just think his content is that good. But anyway, tell me what you think about this video. We're going to end this Joy Boy style. Tell me if you agreed with his thoughts or disagreed. Just let me know, and him, I guess. Subscribe to his channel, but you can subscribe to mine too if you want. And as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.